The champagne flute trembled in Maya's weathered hands as she watched the glittering crowd swirl around her like a galaxy she'd never belonged to. At 63, she felt every year etched into her bones as she pushed the janitor's cart through the opulent ballroom of the Metropolitan Grand Hotel. The annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala was in full swing, and she was invisible among the designer gowns and $1,000 tuxedos. Maya had been cleaning these halls for 15 years. Ever since her husband died and left her drowning in medical bills, she'd watched countless galas from the shadows, serving the elite who dropped more money on a single bottle of wine than she made in 3 months. Tonight felt different, thought Ufa, heavier somehow, as if the weight of her invisible existence was finally crushing her spirit. "Excuse me, Mom." The voice cut through her melancholy like silk. She turned to find Alexander Rothschild himself standing beside her cart, his steel-gray eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. The tech mogul's face had graced every magazine cover for months after his revolutionary AI breakthrough made him the youngest billionaire in America at 35. "I'm sorry, Mr. Rothschild," Maya stammered, quickly moving her cart aside. "I'll be out of your way in just a moment." But Alexander didn't move. Instead, he studied her face with curious attention. "You've been working here a long time, haven't you? I've seen you at these events for years." Maya's cheeks burned with embarrassment. Of course he'd noticed Hera probably wondered why the help was always lurking around during his important gatherings. "Yes, sir. 15 years this December." "What's your name?" The question caught her off guard. In all her years of service, no guest had ever asked her name. Maya Patel." Alexander extended his hand with surprising warmth. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you properly, Maya. I have an unusual request." His eyes sparkled with mischief. "Would you honor me with a dance?" The ballroom seemed to tilt around Maya. Surely she'd misheard. "I'm sorry, sir, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm just the cleaning lady." "I know exactly who you are," Alexander said gently, "and I'm asking you to dance." Every eye in the ballroom had turned toward them. Maya felt the weight of hundreds of gazes, some curious, others clearly scandalized. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a caged bird. "Mr. Rothschild, I appreciate the gesture, but I can't. I don't belong out there." "Maya," Alexander's voice grew softer, more insistent. "When was the last time someone asked you to dance?" The question pierced straight through her carefully constructed armor. Her eyes welled with unexpected tears as memories of her late husband flooded back, of how they used to dance in their tiny kitchen while dinner simmered on the stove, how he'd spin her around their cramped living room to old Bollywood songs on his transistor radio. 20 years ago, she whispered, the words barely audible. Alexander's expression softened with understanding. "Then you're long overdue." Before Maya could protest further, he gently took the handle of her cart and wheeled it to the side. Then he offered his arm with the gallantry of a prince inviting a princess. "Shall we?" The crowd parted like the Red Sea as they walked onto the dance floor. Maya was acutely aware of every whisper, every pointed stare, every phone camera turning in their direction. Her worn black uniform felt shabby against Alexander's impeccable tuxedo, but his grip on her hand was steady and reassuring. As the orchestra began a gentle waltz, Alexander placed one hand on her waist and took her other hand in his. "Just follow my lead," he murmured. At first, Maya's movements were stiff with self-consciousness. But as Alexander guided her through the steps with patient grace, something magical began to happen. The hostile stares faded into background noise. The cruel whispers dissolved into melody. For the first time in decades, Maya felt beautiful. "Why are you doing this?" she asked as they swayed together, her voice thick with emotion. Alexander's eyes never left hers. "Because 3 weeks ago, My 5-year-old daughter Emma was rushed to Children's Hospital with acute appendicitis. It was the middle of the night, and I was terrified out of my mind. Maya felt her breath catch, sensing the weight of his words. While Emma was in surgery, I wandered the halls like a ghost. He continued. That's when I found you, mopping the pediatric ward at 3 in the morning. You saw me crying and didn't hesitate to offer me tissues from your cart. You sat with me for an hour, telling me stories about your own children to distract me from my fear. You didn't know who I was, I just saw a scared father who needed kindness. The memory hit Maya like a gentle wave. She remembered that frightened man with tears streaking his face, how her heart had ached for his obvious pain. She'd done what any mother would do, offered comfort to someone in need. You saved my sanity that night, Alexander said, his voice cracking slightly. Emma came through beautifully, but I never forgot the angel in the hallway who reminded me that humanity still exists in this world. As the waltz reached its crescendo, Maya felt tears streaming down her cheeks. Around them, the ballroom had grown completely silent. The hostile stares had transformed into something else entirely: a respect, wonder, and perhaps a touch of shame. When the music ended, Alexander didn't immediately release her. Instead, he turned to face the crowd, his arm still around Maya's waist. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice carried across the hushed ballroom, I'd like you to meet Maya Patel. For 15 years, she has served this hotel with grace and dignity. 3 weeks ago, she showed my family a kindness that no amount of money could buy. Tonight, I wanted to return a fraction of that gift. The silence stretched for several heartbeats. Then, slowly, one person began to clap, then another. Within moments, the entire ballroom erupted in thunderous applause. But Alexander wasn't finished. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, pressing it into Maya's trembling hands. This is the deed to the house on Maple Street that you've been trying to buy for your daughter's family, he said quietly. His words meant only for her. Consider it a small token of gratitude from one parent to another. Maya's knees nearly gave out as the magnitude of his gesture hit her. The house she'd been saving for her, the dream that seemed impossible on her meager salary, was now hers to give. As the applause continued to rain down around them, Maya looked up at Alexander through her tears and whispered the only words that mattered, "Thank you for seeing me." In that moment, surrounded by wealth and privilege, the greatest treasure in the room wasn't the diamonds or designer gowns. It was the simple, transformative power of human kindness recognizing itself in another soul.